Hello, everybody. I'm Skip Alzheimer. Welcome to the AV Geeks Lunchtime streaming show. That last reel was awesome. I scanned it for a fellow film collector who's based in Houston, Texas, and I don't know where they got it from. I'm guessing they bought a lot of things on eBay, so it's possible that's where that came from.
Hello, everybody. I'm Skip Alzheimer.
Hold on.
Welcome to the AV Geeks Lunchtime streaming show.
Oh, technology. All right. Anyways, we're back. So yeah, that was really, really great. And so was that could have been shot by a commercial filmmaker, a photographer who was shooting a bunch of things for some advertisements for a piece, and so it's like raw footage. You can tell that sometimes white tape would go through. That's how they spliced the various clips together. But yeah, 1966, man. Beautiful. Really, really sweet. And so that's what we do for the lunchtime show is we watch old 16 millimeter films and geek out to them a little bit. Some of these are from my collection, and as I said, some of them are from other people's collection that we've been scanning for them. So let's work on building our vocabulary.
Build your vocabulary. It's an easy thing to say, perhaps harder to do. To demonstrate why you might want to build your vocabulary, and to let you see some methods for building it, my assistants and I are going to present a show. The star of our show will be Bill here. He'll play an average sort of person, maybe like you, who doesn't give his vocabulary much thought. Tom and Jean will double up, playing the parts of many people that Bill might meet and talk to during an average day. And after a little preparation, they'll demonstrate our first important point. Why should you build your vocabulary? Look at it this way. Imagine that life is a sort of game, like a game of baseball. And a person's vocabulary is like a set of signals that helps him to play the game, to communicate to his teammates. If he gives the wrong signals, the team can't be expected to play the game right. He's failed to communicate. But if by chance or design he gives the right signals, he's understood by others. He's communicated, and the game goes smoothly on. In a way, that's what vocabulary is all about. Words are somewhat like signals that help us to communicate smoothly. Without words, we couldn't do some of the simplest things. For example, how can a fella ask a girl for a date without using any words at all? Now, how well can he do with the smallest of vocabularies? Say a vocabulary of 5 words.
Me, you, movie, Coke, fun?
No.
Now, what if we let Bill use his own normal vocabulary?
I'm too scared to say a word.
Well, that's his problem. But so far as vocabulary is concerned, it's generally true that the more words you know, the better you can express yourself. That's why you should build your vocabulary. Now, the all-important question. How can you add new words to your vocabulary? To begin, it might help to realize that a person's vocabulary is made up of two kinds of words. To demonstrate the first kind, we'll call on Bill and Tom.
I want a can of paint for a porch floor. I don't want the shiny kind, but I don't want the dull kind either. I want sort of an orange color, but not too orange. The kind of paint that'll stick to the floor and cover good without leaving brush marks. And I need enough for a floor, about this long and about that wide.
Those are the kind of words Bill uses in his everyday speech. They make up what we'll call his use vocabulary. What other kind of words make up a person's vocabulary?
Let's be sure I've got it straight. You want a semi-gloss porch and deck enamel in a cadmium orange, not too highly saturated. You want a paint with good adherence and good leveling qualities, and you'll need enough to cover 35 square feet, right?
Right.
Semi-gloss, saturated. Though Bill doesn't often use words like these, he understands them. They're part of his recognition vocabulary. Both use and recognition vocabularies can be built. As a matter of fact, one way for a person to improve his use vocabulary is to transfer to it some words from his recognition vocabulary. Bill, for example, hears and reads a lot of words during the day. If he were careful to notice the words he recognizes, and if he were to make an effort to use more of these words in his own conversation, he'd be using the vocabulary he already has to better advantage. Paying close attention to words can be of help in other ways as you build your vocabulary. For example, have you ever noticed, as Bill is beginning to notice, that many words have the same prefixes? The prefix ex means from or out of in Latin, and it's used in words like
Ex,
Sept,
ex,
Clued,
ex,
Crete,
ex,
Empt,
ex,
Hume,
ex,
Pell,
ex,
Pyre,
ex,
Pound,
ex,
Hail,
ex,
Isle,
ex,
It,
ex,
Odus,
ex,
Orsize,
ex,
Port,
ex,
Punge,
ex,
Purgate,
ex.
Terpate.
Many other words have the same suffixes. The suffix able has the same meaning in French that it does in English, having capacity, fitness, worthiness. It's used in words like
Achieve,
A ball,
Adapt,
a ball,
Excite,
a ball,
Export,
a ball,
Move,
a ball,
Perish,
a ball,
Service,
a ball,
Stretch,
a ball,
Traverse,
a ball.
some other prefixes and suffixes are borrowed from Greek. Photo, the Greek word for light, is used in words like
Photo,
Micrograph,
photo,
Montage.
Still others are from German. For example, under is a German prefix. It appears in words like
under,
Pinning,
under.
Rule.
However, even without a good understanding of foreign languages, prefixes and suffixes, a person can sometimes figure out the meanings of some unknown words. Bill can demonstrate.
Dear Bill, this erubescent flower reminds me of your equally erubescent face. Jean.
Erubescent flower? Erubescent can mean red, reddish, or blushing. So, when a new word describes an object, a careful look at the object may let you know what the word means. But what if, say, you're reading a book and there's no object to refer to?
He sailed toward us in a white pinnace with red sails.
What's a pinnace? Well, it has sails. Men sail in it. It must be a kind of boat. In cases like this, surrounding words that you do know can add to your understanding of new words. The point is, don't consider words by themselves. Think of them in context, and you'll have taken an important step toward making them part of your vocabulary. It might help you to remember a few other hints for vocabulary building, things that my assistants can illustrate.
It was a great flick. What I mean is it got me right in the viscera.
Fantastic. But it wasn't just the story. There were those scenes, those costumes, those wild coiffures.
You'd probably go for that. What grabbed me was the cars. That old Phaeton.
Don't just stand there wondering what they're saying. Ask about words you don't know. There's no need to be ashamed, because people will usually be flattered that you've asked them. So, ask.
Those words you used, what do they mean?
Which words?
I forgot.
No need to forget. Carry a little notebook. Write down the words you want to remember or learn more about.
Anyone who could forget simple words like viscera, coiffures, and phaeton has the nescient mind of a moronic booby.
Nescient, moronic, booby.
Also, when you're at home or in school, use word reference books, a dictionary, and a thesaurus. Look up the words you've written in your notebook. Find definitions and synonyms that you can use.
Dear Tom, in promulgating your esoteric cogitations or articulating your superficial sentimentalities, beware of platitudinous ponderosity. And don't use so many big words.
But having a good vocabulary means more than just knowing a lot of words. It's how you use your words that counts. And that brings us to our next and final subject. How do you go about using your growing vocabulary? For most purposes, using your vocabulary well means selecting the right words for the right time, place, and people. For example, Bill, describing to Jean a pretty girl he's met, will probably use words that describe her from a girl's point of view. Describing the same girl to Tom, he'll use words that illustrate the masculine viewpoint. Using your vocabulary well is often a matter of exercising good taste, as my assistants will illustrate.
I'm writing a letter to our congressman. The river is full of filth and garbage. I don't care how well they treat it, the water still tastes like it's polluted.
Well, that's his privilege. Nothing wrong with what he said. But what if we change the circumstances?
I'm writing a letter to our congressman. The river is full of filth and garbage. I don't care how well they treat it, the water tastes like it's polluted.
The right word, on the right occasion, to the right person. That's how you go about using your growing vocabulary. Well, we've showed you the whys and hows of building your vocabulary. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I hope you've come to realize that a good vocabulary makes for effective communication. Thank you.
You're welcome.
The words people share represent interests they share, leading to a richer, better life. Thank you. Those are the results of an ever-improving, ever-growing vocabulary.
Yes, one of the actors does seem to be somewhat Dick York-esque, with the big eyes and the overreacting. What an odd film. Need to see if there's more in that series. Cornette would sometimes release like a batch of films that with the same title and the same theme, like building your, because he also did like improve your vocabulary. I think that was the earlier version of this, but I love it. So I started off the show with some silent footage of a compilation reel of what looked like was raw outtakes of fashion shoots, of shopping, of different stores. And that's possible it could have been a ad for whatever that shopping center was at the end, the more I think about it. But I also get collectors who I'm scanning stuff for who just pile a bunch of clips onto one reel. And so this one is from Craig Baldwin, who's an amazing filmmaker. If you've seen his work, he does a lot of amazing stuff with found footage. Really was one of the early ones doing stuff back in the early 80s. And this is, I just listed it as, what did we list this as? It was kind of funny. Craig's Special, Kid in Fridge, Filmed Video, and then something else. Motorcycle. All right, so it's a wide variety of things, and this has sound. And it doesn't, just barely has any titles. So here we go. Craig Baldwin's Miscellaneous Clip Reel.
Bang, bang! Let's go get him! Bang! 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 Bang!
Boys at play. This is a happy, healthy scene. But in a few moments you will see a situation that has brought grief to many parents. 30 minutes later. Looking for their missing playmate, Gary's friends retrace their steps.
Gary! 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 Gary!
The head is placed in the chin-up position. Raise the jaw. Pinch the nose. Remove your mouth quickly so that the victim can exhale with comfort. Children can easily learn the proper direct artificial respiration procedure. The steps are simple. Tilt the head backward. Pull the jaw forward. Pinch the nose. Take a deep breath and let the world's best built-in respirator, your lungs, take over.
More hair raisers as the motorcycle maniacs tackle a tough hill. Almost impossible to negotiate, but there's no stopping these fellows except the top of the hill.
And it just stops. Yeah, that's Craig Baldwin's mind is amazing mind, and I think he pulled those apart maybe for a project for himself or for someone else, and so we're left without beginnings and ends. That first film, I don't know the title of it, but it's obviously a film on rescue breathing, which is something that predated CPR. I haven't been able to locate it, but it's probably one of the companies that we know that did it. Maybe Film Communicators. Then the middle film was pretty great because it was a promotional film for kinescopes. Kinescopes are when you had something on video and you transferred it to film, usually in a high-resolution monitor, and you would do something so that you would adjust the scan rate so you wouldn't get this weird flicker, and you wouldn't see the scan lines from the TV. And so this was a company that was advertising that from the 80s and with a beautiful 80s hair. And then finally, that last one was probably a Castle Sports Thrills film, maybe? I don't know. Or just a newsreel in general. But yeah, I love just the randomness of that. And I have certainly over the years purchased film reels that were that way, where somebody basically bought out a film lab or ran across a bunch of films and just spliced a bunch of stuff together. And none of it makes sense. Some of it's upside down, some of it's backwards. It's wonderful. It's annoying if you're looking for a complete film and you see this awesome shot and you're like, oh, what is that from? And you have no idea. But it's still a pretty great way to see a bunch of stuff really short. It's almost like you're flipping through with a remote. All right, we have a film on the telecine here, and it's about fishing, and it's about Long Island. So here we go. Channel bass and stripers.
Montauk Point, at the eastern tip of Long Island, has for generations been a favorite haunt of striped bass, surf fishing enthusiasts. For tackle, the old hands at the game use a 6'6" to 7-foot rod tip with about a 12-thread line on a 2/0 reel, the same tackle generally used when surf fishing for channel bass. A black-tinned squid is an excellent lure for stripers, or rockfish as they are also called. Montauk Lighthouse crowns the cliffs and overlooks these famous fishing grounds at the southern portal of Long Island. Here, where the mighty Atlantic endlessly rolls its white caps against the rocker, find picturesque beauty as...
Whoops, splice broke. Give me a sec. It happens. These little tape splices sometimes break. Let's see if I can do this easily.
What a... That's sweet. Wow.
Oh, wait, I know what's going on.
Tumbling breakers. Stripers in the surf mean white water, and it takes a good arm, plus a considerable amount of skill gained from practice to put the lure out where it belongs. Then it is reeled in past the rocks where the stripers usually lie. Fish are always where you catch them. Knowing the right spots is extremely important. Knowing when to change location is also part of the game, and exploring the good places often pays off. But if this kind of fishing wasn't a gamble, it wouldn't be half as much fun. Bang! Something strikes like the crack of a whip. That surging rush repays you for all the casting, reeling, and wishing you've been doing, especially when it's a big one. Never give him slack. Be careful that he doesn't cut your line on a rock, and keep on wishing. You can never be sure of a big striper in the surf until you've completely whipped him and he rolls in the shallow water, where he can be dragged up the beach. This fish weighed better than 40 pounds, although they have been caught on rod and reel up to 73 pounds. But a 20-pounder caught in the surf means wonderful sport and is just cause for celebration. Another lighthouse at Cape Hatteras, North Carolina, looks down upon a long stretch of famous surf fishing coastline. This lovely beach of yellow sand is one of the finest channel bass sections on the Atlantic coast. And with a specially equipped car as our operating base, we're going to see just how another expert gets results. The well-dressed channel bass fisherman should wear a rod belt with leather socket, gaff, and a few other handy gadgets. In addition to the 6'6" or 7-foot tip, 2/0 reel and 12-thread line, when channel bass fishing, you should have a pyramid or cone sinker weighing 4 to 6 ounces, according to the strength of the current or surf. Properly rigged, it will have free play on your 2-foot wire leader. A 7/0 sprout hook is about right. Bait is important, no matter what you're fishing for, in spite of the rare occasions when it seems that the fish will take almost anything. The old standbys, used for channel bass, are menhaden or bunkers, and mullet, especially in the fall, although crabs and fresh squid will take bottom-feeding fish of all varieties. Putting the bait on the hook is also important. Don't just slap it on. You'd be surprised how much difference it makes, and it's just as easy to bait your hook correctly. With everything shipshape, off we go. And now, Mr. Channel Bass, watch out. Snowball, the fishinest dog in the Carolinas, is going to watch to see that everything's done just right. And incidentally, this is Harry Stellwagen, who in 1937 established a world record with a tournament cast of 378 feet. Snowball seems to think something's happening. Channel bass are hooked after you're sure they've really taken the bait. Looks like he needs some help, says Snowball. It's a small one, but it'll look just right on the dinner table. Hey there, partner. Restrain that enthusiasm a bit. Notice the black spot on the tail. That's the channel bass trademark. But let's get a bigger one. Sometimes schools of fish lie in the channels along the shore, and they can be taken without too much trouble. But these fish are generally not the big ones, which every fisherman wants to get. Although this one proves to be far from a record breaker, he's a mighty nice fish. A good thing to remember is that these bass bite in 3 different ways. Some pick up the bait and drop it several times before making up their minds. Others grab it and run, while some will carry it right in toward the beach. In any case, let the fish swim off until you feel his weight before setting the hook. Even after you're pretty sure that he's well hooked, remember that he has a tender mouth. Keep a tight line at all times and reel in, but don't force him, or you'll probably lose your fish, and you can't always be too sure that it's a channel bass you've hooked onto. There are other things besides these gamesters out there in the ocean. Plenty of sharks, for example, and now and then a stingray, which carries a dangerous and poisonous stinger in its tail. Snowball enjoys bass fishing, but he's one dog that knows the difference when a stingray is brought in. No, sir. He wants no part of that little sea monster. He'll just wait for something better to be caught. This time, the line spins out in a different manner, which tells the old master that he's into the real thing. The fight is on. Out he goes until the tide catches him and he's swept back in. Out he goes again and again. But each rush becomes shorter and shorter, and weaker too, and he's worked closer and closer to the beach. Finally, the big fellow is beached in a few inches of water, where he can be picked up and dragged proudly up onto the sand. He's a big fish, the kind that every surf fisherman dreams about catching. And when he does, he remembers every detail of the fight for the rest of his days. This fish tips the scales at 47 pounds, which is more than enough to round out a wonderful day of surf fishing.
I feel like I have some other Holly and Lord films. That one takes place Montauk, which is Long Island, and Cape Hatteras, which is in North Carolina, which is probably about 4 or 5 hours from here, because there's not like a direct interstate highway there, so you have to kind of go through these meandering things to get to it. And I don't know if I've been to Cape Hatteras. My gut is that I haven't. I've been to other lighthouses in North Carolina, but not Cape Hatteras. So, anyways, enough about me. Let's learn about radioactive fallout.
A nuclear burst is frequently thought of as totally apart from conventional weapons. But what is it that sets it apart? Heat? No. The degree of heat is greater, but there is a heat factor in conventional weapons too. Blast? Again, much greater in degree, but also found in conventional weapons. The one totally different factor in a nuclear burst is radioactive fallout. The effects from fallout of a nuclear explosion range far beyond the effects of heat and blast. The hazards from fallout can extend for hundreds of miles from ground zero and continue for days or weeks. It is the story of radioactive fallout resulting from a nuclear surface burst that this film will tell. Within the fireball of a nuclear burst, the temperature and pressure are so high that everything in the fireball is vaporized, including the radioactive beta and gamma-emitting fission products. In a surface burst, large quantities of dirt and debris are drawn into the cloud at early times. This debris mixes with the vaporized fission products during the initial phases of cloud formation and growth. As cool air is drawn into the fireball, and much of the heat energy is emitted as thermal radiation, the cloud cools. When sufficient cooling has occurred, the vaporized radioactive fission products, shown here as hollow circles, begin to condense on the dirt and debris particles in the cloud. As this condensation occurs, fallout particles are formed. Some of the particles are the size of grains of sand. Others are microscopic. All of them are not radioactive, but those that are emit nuclear radiation. It is exposure to this penetrating radiation that can cause sickness and even death. These fallout particles inhabit the entire cloud, a cloud that may tower to heights of over 100,000 feet. There are variations in the size, shape, radioactive content, and final height that the particles reach. But for all surface bursts, some generalities do apply. About 10% of the radioactive materials are in the stem. The remaining 90% are in the cloud proper, the mushroom head. Those particles at the top of the cloud contribute to delayed fallout. They remain in the stratosphere for long periods of time and disperse over much of the world. However, it is the early fallout that produces the major survival problem. This fallout contains most of the radioactive particles produced by the bomb. These particles fall to Earth up to several hundred miles from ground zero in dangerously heavy concentrations. One of the factors that determines how the particles will deposit on the ground is the size, shape, and density of the particles themselves. The larger, heavier particles will deposit close to ground zero. On the other hand, the lighter, smaller particles disperse more widely. They may take hours to descend, and in that time, winds may carry them hundreds of miles from ground zero. Fallout deposition is also affected by the altitude of the particles in the cloud. Although the smaller particles are found predominantly at the top of the cloud, and the larger ones predominantly at the base, there are no strict boundary lines. Large and small particles do occur at all altitudes within the cloud. All factors being equal, the higher particles will be carried further, and so will disperse more widely than the lower ones. Another important factor determining the area covered by appreciable fallout, as well as its distribution within that area, is the integrated wind pattern from the top of the cloud to the ground. Here we're using just a slice of the mushroom cloud for illustration. Direction and speed of the wind at cloud level will influence the motion and extent of the cloud itself. The winds at lower altitudes can cause the fallout particles to drift one way, then another while they descend to Earth. Under actual nuclear detonation conditions, all of the factors we've mentioned interrelate to produce a highly irregular pattern. Areas of heavy fallout may appear some distance from ground zero, just as light fallout zones may appear in close. Precipitation, rain, snow, or hail will bring down an increased number of fallout particles as the cloud passes through it, causing hot spots, which are areas of much higher dose rates than in the immediate surroundings. Additional patterns from other blasts may well move in and overlap as shown in the highlighted portions here, adding still further to the complexity. This irregular pattern is difficult to reproduce in training exercises. Consequently, stylized, symmetrical fallout patterns are commonly used for illustration purposes, even though they're rarely found after actual nuclear bursts. These stylized patterns are useful in showing general principles or for estimating the overall effect of fallout from a large-scale attack. We have traced fallout from its formation to its silent deposition on the ground. This is the first step in understanding the problems associated with fallout, and so will better enable us to take protective measures for our survival.
So that narrator sounds familiar. I think he shows up in those retrospect civil defense things. And he was a former CBS guy, and he showed up on the You Are There that I showed about the Alamo. His name's Doug something, I feel like. That's my gut feeling. All right, I've got a film set up here called Licorice Train. I watched a long, long time ago, and I haven't seen it since, so kind of excited to watch it. Oops. What did I just hit? Oh. Everything's so tightly arranged on this this table that I'm using that. All right. Okay. We'll rewind this. All right. I should say, if you like what you're seeing and you'd like to support us, you just please hit like and subscribe or notifications or any of those things that you can do. You can also buy us coffee by going to buymeacoffee.com/avgeeks, and we will drink your coffee. All right, so here we go. Licorice Train.
Licorice train came thundering through the gingerbread village of nowhere, and the chocolate conductor with his white loaves of teeth smiled at the dreams that were dreams there. Wish on a star, it's not very far. So said the dish to the spoon. And if you're young at heart, you'll be there before you start, watching the man in the moon. For it matters not who you are, where you were born, or why you want to be there. The thing to remember is that you're a child with good things and laughter to share. Oh, where is the place where ice cream is free? The gingerbread village of nowhere. And where can I sail on a soda pop sea? The gingerbread village of nowhere. Where can I find a marshmallow cloud? Get on the licorice train. And where can I see what I used to be? Get on the licorice train. For life is a dream, and the dreaming is fun. That's right, your thinking is clear. I think I will go, for somehow I know that nowhere is now and it's near. The licorice train is in every heart. It carries a carload of Sundays. Down in the people who never let go of all the numerous fun days. Lemonade ponds and candy cane bowls flashed past our twinkling eyes. And from deep in the soul of our angel food hearts came our lemon drop sighs. For we passed through a land filled with peppermint trees, dripping honey of gold. And tucked in the beds of the houses we passed slept children who would never grow old.
It's what we call irony. So I don't know what year that came out. I'm guessing late 60s, early 70s. I have seen films that have the same message, but not as musical. Basically saying like, look, these kids have playgrounds, and these kids have parks, and these kids have places that they can play and run, and these kids play with broken glass, and these kids play on burned out cars, and these kids and that's something that I've seen since the 50s actually, and talking about the you need safe spaces for kids to play, just to get their yayas out. Although I would say that some of the kids that were in the I'm guessing they lived probably in the Bronx, in like Bronx part of New York City. They did some things that I was also doing when I lived in suburbs of Ohio. You know, fishing for stuff in drains, and if there was a car that we could play on, we would play on a car. And we did break bottles. We didn't pitch pennies, but so I'm not saying, you know what I'm saying. Anyways, it's a fascinating look at what was contemporarily happening at that time. There's a message there. And the message is that I need to find licorice jelly beans because it is Easter, and this is the time that I can shine and get licorice jelly beans. So that's what I got from that film. All right, everybody, thanks for tuning in today. We'll be back tomorrow, Tuesday. Again, if you like what you saw, please hit like or subscribe. You can buy us coffee and go to avgeeks.com to see other stuff that we've digitized and put online. Wide variety of different things. We were all over the map today. I very much like having a mixed bag of different things from different sources. So we will be back tomorrow. And as always, we look inside the film can to kind of give us advice, and it tells us to please rewind and love each other. And I will see you tomorrow. Everybody take care.